Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. I'm Jim Cardle. State Representative Dan Flynn hails from House District 2 in Northeast Texas, and not only is chairman of the House Pensions Committee, he's also a member of the House Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. He handled two of the most significant but not necessarily well-known issues this session, having to do with American laws and American courts, as well as the Dallas and the Houston firefighter and police pension issues. As the special session comes upon us July 18th, State Representative Flynn is here to bring us up to date on the session's successes and what might be ahead during the special session. And we're pleased to be able to visit with State Representative Dan Flynn from House District 2 today. Well, State Representative Dan Flynn from House District 2, appreciate you coming in today. Thanks for joining us.
It's always my pleasure to come and visit with you.
As I mentioned in the introduction, you're a member of the Military and Defense Affairs Committee. You're also chairman of the Pension Committee and had a number of successes this legislative session. Let's just jump right into one or two of them before we maybe get to the special session going on. But one of the most impressive things I think that many Texans may or may not have heard about was your effort with HB 45, the American Laws in American Courts effort that I know you'd worked on a couple sessions. It takes that long to get significant things done. Talk about your effort for making sure our constitutional rights are focused on in the courtroom.
Yeah. It was my number one priority. I told my staff that that was where I wanted to focus everything we did because last session I had filed the bill, but I pulled it down because we had another bill that a special interest group wanted to handle and do, and so I backed off because it was more important to me that we address the issue. And when it went down, I knew that from then on I was going to work with it. And we were very, very pleased because I was able to bring all the groups together, and so that we had a bill that was a consensus, and it was an agreed to bill by all of the parties. Attorney General Ken Paxton gave me an opinion that was just right along with what we were thinking and what we believed needed to be addressed. And then we had to get the family law courts together, and we wrote letters to every family law judge in Texas and told them what we were trying to do. We believed with all of our heart that all Texans, they want American law in American courts. And with all of the influx of a lot of foreign groups coming in here, they're bringing their own law. And as I told every one of them, I said, you know what, we're not saying your law is bad. It's just that if you're going to do business in Texas, you came here because you liked our freedoms, you liked our law, we have a rule of law state, and we're going to use American law. And if you don't want to use it, you might want to go somewhere else.
And I know, just to break it down a little bit further, there's a significant Asian population in Houston. You in the DFW Metroplex have a Muslim community that I know one of the mayors up there has struggled with. And you're right, as a nation of immigrants, they can come, but I guess delve into a little bit more. You're seeing some of the laws that they set up their mock courts of their own, correct?
And I believe that's, American English common law is what it's made our country great. It's made us the greatest place in the world to live, and that's why people want to come here. So we're not going to bring other cultures in here and change what's been successful for us. And it starts with our courts. And that's where we wanted to be sure that we had recodified it. We believed it was already in the Constitution, but it needed to be recodified because a lot of these large companies, they have a lot of foreign nationals that come here and work. And those people were putting pressure on them because they wanted to have these arbitrations, they wanted to do other things, which was very contrary to our American law. And so we believed that this was important to do, and we were very pleased because we had overwhelming support and success from all walks. We really did, and I'm thankful to a lot of my friends that helped us, not only in Texas lawsuit reform, but the trial lawyers of Texas that worked with the family law courts, and we ended up passing a bill that was near unanimous in both the House and Senate.
So you mentioned the family law courts. I guess there's civil, criminal. Was it primarily divorce proceedings or child care, or maybe some of the cultural norms that they try and enforce?
When we wrote Attorney General and asked for an opinion, we listed out 19 scenarios
Really?
that we believe needed to be addressed and needed to be taken care of. and he did a great job of addressing just those issues that you're talking about, because you know, you've got these cultural differences, and it does affect the individual rights. It lessens the rights of some of our citizens, and we're not going to allow that to happen. This is Texas, and not only is it Texas, but it's the United States of America. And we were very pleased, because like I said, it was my number one priority. And House Bill 45, you can see that we filed it very early, and we wanted to be sure that it was passed, and we were very pleased. Speaker Strauss, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and the governor signed it as soon as it got to his desk.
Well, congratulations on that. Speaking of Texas, I want to jump to another issue. First of all, folks, thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers. We're visiting with State Representative Dan Flynn from House District 2 up in Northeast Texas. You are chairman of the Pensions Committee, and I know our state's chief financial officer, Comptroller Glenn Hager, at the beginning of the session, I believe, said something to the effect that his biggest concern for Texas's credit rating in the financial markets was the Houston and the Dallas pension systems, particularly the firefighters and the police unions. You were the chairman of the committee. I'm sure it was a very difficult lift, and without getting into the weeds, which I'm sure were very, very interesting in the back rooms, because it involved a lot of money and a lot of people in those pension systems. Talk about your efforts this session on the pension reform.
Okay, there was 93 pensions in the state of Texas that we have somewhat oversight over, and the Pension Review Board reviews. The actuarial or the unfunded liabilities were $66 billion, and that's a bunch of money. And when I try to explain a billion, I tell everybody, I said, go get you a nickel, and then think of a billion nickels. That's a lot of money.
There you go.
And it's one of those things that we believe that we had to arrive at a conclusion. First of all, Houston and Dallas both had a cash hole of over $8 billion. And
meaning a flat-out deficit,
they were going
obligations,
broke.
no cash in the bank.
The city of Houston and the city of Dallas could very well have gone broke, just like Detroit. What's happening right now in the news right now, look at Illinois, state of Illinois. The whole state of Illinois is issuing IOUs for something like the winners of lotteries and things like that. It's kind of scary. Could have happened here. The Houston bill was somewhat interesting because the city had not put all of the money that they were required to, so they had to fill that hole. The Dallas bill was somewhat interesting because they had some very poor investments, and they were doing things that you cannot pay out more than you take in, and that's what they were doing. So we had to try to bring it all together, and we believe that the most important thing I wanted to do was take care of the actuarial soundness, be sure that there was a pension for those retired people that are out there, and then that there's an ongoing pension for the existing employees and the new hires coming in, because it's certainly one of the recruiting things that you got to have. We believe that what we were able to do with the two big pension bills in Texas was we saved their pensions. And yes, there's not everybody's happy. We use the term often about shared sacrifice, and of course each issue believes that they are the ones that had to sacrifice the most. But what I told them, I said, your alternative was a pension or nothing, and that was that direction. Some of them didn't believe that. The city of Houston was losing $1 million a day. That was why it's so important when we got the bill back from the Senate that we had to have 100 votes to get it go into effect immediately, because if we'd waited for the 90 days, the city could have lost another $325 million.
And a lot of people here in Austin, at least, may know that in the House and the Senate, if you do hit the 2/3 threshold, 150 members in the House, you have to have 100 for it to be effective immediately when the governor signs it, correct?
That's right. That's correct.
So they were losing so much money, and explain, if you would, because insurance companies or pensions have money coming in. It doesn't just sit in the bank. It goes out and it's invested in skyscrapers and pieces of property where there's generating income. Talk about some of the complex or inappropriate investments maybe that you saw, because I know there were some.
Yeah, that was why it was very important to replace the board with people that had financial knowledge, successful financial knowledge, and unfortunately the board had been made up of more people that really weren't financially aware of what was going on. They were making, in Dallas, for example, they lost a tremendous amount of money in Hawaii investments, huge amounts of investments in Paris, France.
Really?
And then when they were out of cash, they would actually go and borrow money to make additional investments in things like a vineyard, for example. And they did not have the expertise to take care of those kind of things, and so they were losing a lot of money. And that was the big thing. We had to change the board. We didn't change the makeup of the board. We also required them to have actuarial soundness training, and not only that, but fiduciary responsibility training, because a lot of them felt like that if they didn't go to a board meeting, well, they weren't responsible. But that's not the way the law works. And so it was an education process, because no one believes that there is a problem, because they're getting everything and they want to continue the way it is, and they couldn't see far enough down the road. Houston and Dallas both, within a very short period of time, could have completely gone broke. It would have broke their cities. They did not want to believe that, but when we have the Pension Review Board of the state of Texas coming and giving us numbers, and we're looking at it, Jim, just think about it. The actuarial soundness for Houston and or the unfunded liabilities was over $20 billion.
Really?
Yeah, and so when you're having that plus the big cash gap of over $8 billion, everything is big, and so every little tweak that you do can help or it can hurt. And so we were very fortunate, near unanimous approval of both of them in the House and the Senate. And then when we came back with the Senate bill, we were able to get the 100 vote count for Houston and win it immediately.
You mentioned the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago. Just in the recent weeks has been in the news. You're not only a leader here in the Texas House, but a leader nationally, National Conference of State Legislators, and on some military affair boards. But because it's increasingly becoming an issue in other states, you mentioned Detroit as well, and we like to frequently say that as goes Texas, so goes the nation. Do you see that effort that you've done as possibly impacting some other cities around the country, perhaps?
A number of my friends that serve on that board of the NCSL with me have been calling me and wanting copies of our bill, because it's, there's just a long list of cities that are in trouble. When we mentioned Detroit went broke, and it was their pensions that took them down. And
that means people don't get their pensions. That means the bondholders don't get their money, the city obligations. If you have outstanding bills that haven't been paid, a lot of pain there.
Well, when all you got to do is look at the private sector. Look at the number of private sectors that have done away with pensions or have just gone broke. We've got them right here in Texas that's happened, and we made a commitment. My staff and I have Madison Albright, who's here in the studio with us today, but David Aronaki is my chief of staff, and Kelly Linza, who is my legislative director. We got in rooms together and we said, hey, we're going to save these pensions, because it's not only illegal, moral. So this was a big issue for us, and I agreed with Commissioner Hager. The pensions were kind of a silent item that people didn't know much about until it was time to retire. And then when it was time to retire, it's too late to restart over and do anything. And you're hoping to get what you expected all along, but you don't always keep up with what you're having to do. Those firemen, those teachers, they don't get Social Security, so they have no safety net.
Really?
And so it was very important that we did. A lot of people had a lot of ideas of what needed to be done and how they wanted to do it, but they never could figure out what to do with those unfunded liabilities. And that's why it was important. As I've told you on many occasions, we do the Boy Scout deal. You got to stop the bleeding, and you treat the wound, and then hopefully you can heal the patient. And we believe that we've done the first two things, and we're looking forward to being able to work this out. It was the toughest issue that I have faced in the legislature. And for us to be able to come through with the strong support we got from other members, and Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker, and the Governor, we appreciate them. It's kind of interesting. Everybody was saying, well, how much did they help you? Well, they probably helped me most by staying out of the way.
Interesting.
And it was when we got the bills, they were in total support, because they recognized the importance of not letting these big pensions go broke. All you have to do is read the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, local newspapers, and you can see a list of cities that are in serious trouble on pensions.
Speaking of, you mentioned the Boy Scout analogy, which is very appropriate. I'm going to try to be a good Boy Scout and stay on time because I know you've got a busy schedule. One final question moving from pensions, and that has to do with the overall legislative session. Many analysts have said it's yet another conservative session. You had pro-life bills addressed, you had police officers protected, you had further border security. Talk about, if you can, a budget that came in under population and inflation growth. Talk a little bit about the session. There are some who said not enough was done. You're coming back for a special session, but yet there was plenty to be grateful for, I believe. What do you think were some of the biggest successes?
You've listed them. I mean, we've got to continue to protect our border, and we did address it. Transportation is a big issue. Healthcare is probably the big gorilla in the room.
Really?
That we were able to do a lot there. A lot more needs to be done because it's just that's one of those issues that is a money hungry grab. And CPS, those are
Child Protective Services.
Yeah, and we had some real challenges there, but we did work towards all of them. Of course, our public school finance is one of the issues that we always have as a priority. We don't pay our teachers, the classroom teachers, what they would like or what we would like to give them, and we need to find a better way of looking at financing of public education. And that's one of the reasons that property tax is going to be such a big issue. Probably the reason we're coming back for a special session is one of the sunset bills. The medical board did not get passed, so we couldn't continue its existence without having it passed.
Which issues licenses to medical industry, right?
Yeah, and so I serve on that sunset commission, and I was fortunate. My 5 bills that I had to shepherd through, they all passed. I was real happy, and it was sad to me that the medical board didn't get passed. But that's so be it, and we're going to address it, and I think it'll get passed, and then it gives us an opportunity to address some of these conservative issues that the lieutenant governor and the speaker would like to have us consider. And I believe we'll have a successful special session. We may not get everything done, but you know what? That's why we meet every 2 years.
And a lot of folks won't realize Texas is one of only a handful of states that do not have year-round legislators. And then just to follow on real quick, the special session starts July 18th, goes for 30 days. The governor has not yet issued his actual proclamation, and yet he's listed 20 items, most of which you all have already started dealing with.
That's right.
But 20 items in 30 days seems like maybe the expectations are being set pretty high.
I think so.
Do you anticipate 10, 12, 20? What's the outlook?
Well, as a young kid playing ball, I never went in a game thinking we were going to lose. I always thought we'd win, and so we'll be looking at that. One of the things that's kind of a misnomer to a lot of the citizens is they think that we only work 140 days in Austin. It took me the last 2 years to work on those pension bills, and we worked daily on it, back and forth to Austin. Plus, we were doing other things with the Sunset Commission.
Okay.
But being a state representative and a senator in the state of Texas is not just a part-time job. It really is one that you have to spend a lot of time working on because we're so big. And then we do a 2-year biennial budget, and to be sure that you can do that and address all the issues, it's challenging.
Well, speaking of that, we've run out of time. I'm going to let you get back to some of those issues. The special session, as I mentioned, comes upon us July 18th. We hope to be able to have you back during that time and appreciate you coming in.
Listen, I appreciate you getting the word out to the people. Texas Insider does the best job that I believe anyone does here in Austin of getting the information to people.
Well, appreciate that. Appreciate your hard work. Congratulations on success so far.
Thank you.
Folks, we want to thank you as well for joining us on this edition of Texas Insider TV with State Representative Dan Flynn from House District 2, Chairman of the House Pensions Committee. And remember, you're either an insider or you're not. I'm Jim Cardle.